Well, Team Dignitas are but one game away from a rematch with Gen G, a rematch of a rematch with Gen G in the grand finals. And we haven't even brought it up yet, but I think it's a really important point to do this. This is the last match for JPL.
Yeah,
well, tournament for JPL.
It definitely is, and that's even more pressure on him. So right now, you know he's going to play his heart out if at any point they fall behind to make sure that they're not losing the series. But after the initial loss on the first map, they now have 2 in a row. Again, we have basically a repetition of the first semifinal here today, at least up to this point. So things are looking good for them.
Which means Miracle would take the win on the next map, no?
That would mean that if we're going to be having that happening whatsoever, and then go to that game 5, that could be
exciting. Got to go
exciting.
Infernal Shrines though, right? If we're going to repeat.
I mean, I'm okay with the 5 mapper.
Yeah, I'm down with it. I'm totally fine with it. I guess just talking a little bit more about that JPL point. JPL is going to be leaving a legacy on Heroes of the Storm no matter what happens here today. But he does want that big tournament win. And it was kind of funny because I've never seen a spot where JPL has mentioned that he's nervous before, and the other day I bumped into him in the elevator, and he was like, I could actually just play my last series tomorrow, and that could be it. I've never seen those nerves from him before, but it also shows why he has nerves of steel, because he's still showing up on the stage and delivering. I mean, you guys talk about a Stitch all the time, but this guy has been an amazing European player for so long that, again, his legacy is going to leave a major mark on Heroes of the Storm.
Oh, he has changed tank meta, as we have known it many a time.
Everything that he's done, I mean, anytime he grabs something, I mean, how many times have they pulled out the Stitches in the middle of the tournament and somebody tries to emulate it? Everybody always tries to do what he does, and they never do it quite as good. Maybe Breeze in Europe, he's pretty good, but everybody tends to latch on to things that he's done throughout his entire career.
And what a heartache it would be to not be able to make it at least to grand finals for them, but we know that they want so much more. They've been trying to get this win, and I feel like they've never been closer.
The one funny thing with JPL was always when you ask them in front of the series how they're going to do is always like, no, we're going to lose. even if they're on a 20-0 win streak in scrims, also, no, we're going to lose. And the second he tells you, oh, we're going to win this, you're like, okay, they are in trouble. That was the one meme with Dignitas that they always had going around.
Ah, so just reverse psychology yourself. I got it. That's surely a thing.
Takes the pressure off.
Yeah. No, he's always been like that. Even when we had them secured for BlizzCon in the first seed, and there was a match happening for the online play, I was like, hey, any fun things going to come out? You going to show us some different plays? And he goes, no, I'm here to win, period. Like, him and Snitch are probably the rocks on this team that speak towards that. They are here for the victories, and they play to win every single time. So when he does pull those weird Stitches plays or whatever takes that you don't normally see in the meta and is meta defining, it's because they actually believe in changing the meta that we see it as.
And this team together has dominated the Western region. It's just that one last hurdle to be a world champion that has been Gen G. And it's made it to where it's not even necessarily a disappointment that they lost at the midseason brawl to Gen G, because that match was so close. It could have gone either way, and it was just such an honor for them to even be a part of that and make history like that.
Yeah, but for him and Snitch, I mean, this was the second time in a row that they ended up in the best of 7 and lost it on the final map. So they are sitting there, you know, they want that big victory right now. It happened against Fnatic, it happened against Gen G. Especially for Snitch, I always felt bad. You always saw him sitting there and it's like, again, in the final moment, we're just not able to make that little step between victory and defeat. And that's why here, with JPL now, they want to make sure that this is the time when they take the title.
But all the expectations are on Team Dignitas. There's nothing expected of Miracle past this point. It's icing on the cake almost. Does that maybe give Miracle the freedom to bring in some of those comfort picks that we've seen from them in the past?
Yeah, they mentioned nerves in the interview, but there's a certain point to where you're up here long enough, you get used to it. And for Nacho Gen, he is a world champion, so they still have somebody on that team, the same as Wubby, and that offlaner. The offlaners both have a championship to their name. It's been a while for Nacho Gen, but this is still 2 of the best that we've had over the years. So you still have that element to you, but you have the up-and-comers that when you don't have that weight on you, we've seen similar runs like we saw in Europe with Zealots and leftovers on that team. There's a certain point of you get the nerves out of your system, and then you just have fun and you play and you just enjoy it.
I mean, one of the things that we've seen here on the stage in the past was when Fnatic was going against MVP Black, and they came in and said, we're not going to take a map. We have no chance against these guys. They are unbeatable. So there was zero pressure on them. Then they start playing, and all of a sudden they win game after game, and they're like, boys, we can actually do this.
What I loved about that, too, is that is a theme that has held true this BlizzCon, too, is that after they beat Gen G, then MVP Black, they're like, I feel like we already won the grand finals. We beat MVP Black. Now we got to play Ballistics? Like, okay, but we already did the thing that we really wanted to do, and if Miracle could get the win here, they would feel the same. Now, both of these teams have been known for their team fighting, their mechanical strength, and we've got a lot of teams that are looking to brawl, and here we can see how much time for these teams is devoted to team fighting. And Miracle is right at the top. Team Dignitas, they're third. We expect the Korean teams to be up toward the top. Trick, do you feel like maybe if we can get a place where there is more team fighting, that this would be maybe a way for Miracle to bring it back?
I mean, why you look at the map bans of BOE is not here. Dignitas doesn't want to give that option.
Right.
You look at Europe, and typically we are a region that is a little bit more slow and methodical when it comes to our battlegrounds. Sure, we know how to find isolation and get picks, but we are looking at the macro game overall in terms of our offensive capabilities. That's what we're moving into. So it's no shocker that the top two teams when it comes to actual game fighting is going to be the Korean teams. In fact, if China would last a little bit longer, I could imagine them starting to even eclipse EU as well. So yes, Miracle is a team fight team, and if they can get to a battleground that gives us engagements, if Dignitas lets up at all, that's where we're going to see them move in.
Well, let's see where we move into then, and if it's a team fight focused map, or if Team Dig can out-macro Cursed Hollow. That's a big battleground, Jay-How.
Well, we know the Hanzo factor for the boss play, but what we've seen from Dignitas over the years, they've run Greymane on this map countless times. They can play the macro game. They do very good in rotations, map manipulation, all things that they have, and then you factor in the solo laner. Urel not as popular on this map, maybe a higher prioritization on Dahaka, and the way that Dignitas can maybe play around that and get some advantages early. When we saw them just the other day, they were going against the Maiev, they had the Blaze, they countered it perfectly, and I think they have just tools at every different department to say, hey, look, we're willing to concede certain parts of the map to get control later.
You just have a lot more options on this map in the way that you play it, especially on the decision-making side, when it's not only about the tributes, but you have a double boss, so that always allows a huge amount of plays here. I love, again, that we're seeing these Medivh adjustments. It shows that we have, from Miracle, a lot of research that went into this, but it also leaves us, again, for the second time in a row now, in a position where those double tank bans that we've seen on map 1 and map 2 are not going to be a thing. So we will have Judy with a choice here.
Hanzo also becomes a primary target too. You were mentioning the double boss being available. Sergeant Hammer huge on this battleground. You were talking about the double boss plays, but you can also move into global plays. There's also the ability to say, you know what, we're going to pick one lane and just run it all the way down with Sergeant Hammer 3-man compositions. And we also have the ability for Abathur compositions. But not today, Miracle says. They ban them out.
Super smart, because on Towers of Doom, Tempest twice let through Abathur versus both Heroes Hearth and Team Dignitas, and both of them ended up 6-capping them. So this is a good, nice adjustment to see the consideration of the macro game for Miracle, who haven't played Cursed Hollow this tournament or even in part 2, so there's not a lot of data for Team Dignitas to know on what Miracle like here.
Well, the last time we saw Dignitas on this was when Snitch was on that Zeratul, making some of the best Zeratul plays you'll ever see. So they have that in their back pocket. It might actually warrant a ban in the second ban phase. Genji picked up. Now we're going to see Tyrande, Garrosh, so a very strong tanky front line around those. Tyrande, we know the sustain there. You can maybe get the Groundbreaker, get the taunt onto that Genji, so you have control. But Diablo, without that being let through, your options are more limited in terms of how you can latch on to a hero like Genji.
Winter Run immediately also gives you scouting opportunities. You can double check the boss the entire time. You have interrupt potential against tribute channels, and you have the kill potential with Garrosh and his flip. But we have now the aggressive picks on the side of their opponent. Miracle again with the Anubaraki, and also the global play in their hands with the Hawk on the side lane.
I'm wondering how Anubrak is going to be for Judy here. Judy is one of these hit or miss Anubrak player that feels like he is either going to have a lights out game or the lights are going to be dimmed pretty darn quickly for Miracle.
Yeah, how much of that Garrosh pick do you feel is a JPL wanting to play Garrosh versus a, if we deny this, we're denying a lot from Judy?
It's a combo of both. It's certainly, I mean, we all saw what he did yesterday, man.
Hey.
What we saw yesterday was ridiculous from Judy. You need to keep that away from him if you can, and Dignitas responds appropriately.
On a ban.
There's a lot of setup with the sleep dart, then you've got the isolation, the drag, the Anub, stun lock, Genji coming in. A whole lot flying at the faces of Team Dignitas.
It's one of the setups that we've seen from Miracle against Genji, and so Banana, you're just taking her out, make sure that those combos are not going to become an issue.
Well, when you look at Anubrak diving in, you need the dive buddy. You don't have that with Urel. So the Zeratul pick now is more threatening because you just VP the backline the minute Anubrak goes in. His health pool is small enough that you can get those takedowns. I'm just curious if we get a Blaze or not, because the Blaze can be cocooned, and we don't have a Li Ming or anything that can pop the cocoon super quick. But the Hanzo finally picked up to pair with the Raynor. Mobility tankiness on the backline when it comes to Raynor, but everybody else is susceptible to dive.
There have been multiple games now where I've been sure Snitch is playing Zeratul.
That's what he wants you to think.
Wubby can play Zeratul. I just don't think this is the place.
No, I know. It's just it's very curious to me. Malfurion and Jaina are the final 2 picks for Miracle. Let's see what Dig wants to get.
We had Jaina banned twice in a row now. I could have actually totally seen them go for a double reset setup here and trying to get Li Ming on their end as well, which they didn't really end up doing, but they have the lockdown with the roots that they can use. Blaze hasn't come too much as a shock considering what we still have on the board here. Could have thought about a Rel maybe, but Blaze for WBB is going to be great in the setup now.
You just can't ignore the extra protection.
Yeah.
It's needed. Make sure Hanzo is nice and safe. Get them all cozy. Put them in a good spot. Put them in your bunker. And let them fire some flamers. So yeah, Dignitas won out the Blaze there for the 5th pick.
Well, Miracle is relying on Dahaka to give them that macro pressure, while at the same time, they have a lot of stun lock and a lot of kill potential. Seems like a combo that is well-rounded for what Miracle likes, but is it enough to take down Team Dignitas?
Judy did not look good on Diablo in the last game. Now he plays on a hero that can get blown up a lot quicker even than Diablo, so I feel it hinges really on him. If he somehow can make that Anubarak work without having an extra layer of protection, they have a chance here, but right now I'm looking at this, and with the last game still in my mind, I think Dignitas has a fantastic chance of closing out the series.
A lot of it, I think, does come down to the point you made, is they're going to rely on the Dahaka to do most of the macro and then allowing that 4-man to roam. But when you have the Hanzo, you have the boss play, you can do things slightly different. You could ignore some of those team fights. Don't allow Jaina to get her trait finished, make her more of a liability very late into the game without that ice block. So there is a lot that Dignitas can do to stay away from that style of play. But I agree with you that it is solely around that Dahaka to make most of the macro plays while the rest of the team does work. It's just a matter of, will Dignitas allow them to be sought after? They have the vision control with the Sentinel from Tyrande.
And Hanzo. There's so much vision there for Team Dignitas and so much boss control.
Yeah, it certainly is. I mean, and then you look at the composition for Miracle, as you guys are mentioning, there's so many squishies that can be picked off, even Dahaka to a degree. If you lock him down just enough, you can blow him up. And anytime that one target is lost, you know Dignitas is going to be saying, can we boss right now? And if the answer is even close to a yes, they're going to beeline over, grab that puppy, and push the lane.
Well, if you're a Miracle fan, they need to hear you right now, because if they don't win this game, they're going home. Game 4 between Team Dignitas and Miracle begins right now.
Miracle put it all on the line here with some aggressive plays. Will Judy's Anubarak be hit or miss today? That is the question, and I need to see the answer.
I'm scared for them now.
Yeah.
First game was fantastic. I came into the day and said, okay, Dignitas has to work for the victory here, but this draft is a risk that Miracle is running now.
Yeah, well, I mean, the one thing is that Genji is always a scary hero to play against. There's always a possibility for those sets, and of course to find those couple of picks. So it's definitely a possibility here for Miracle to pull off this win, and they're going to have to, obviously, or they are going home.
Exactly. This is the last hurrah for them, and it's going to hinge on Judy, on his performance on the front line, that Anubarak play. Can he find those engages?
So here we go. Game number 4. Dignitas hoping to close it out. Here they are on the left. JBL playing a Garrosh, looking for those combos. Wubby nailing the jet proportions all day. Poik on the Hanzo.